Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from ONI, the Silver Line, out October 13th on Iron Shore Records. The album has 9 tracks, 29 minutes in length, and this is the band's third full-length studio record. They are a Canadian metalcore band. From a design standpoint, I wasn't surprised or shocked in terms of what this record offers. If you listen to the singles, you kind of get an idea of what the DNA of the band is all about, but you also get the idea that this album is all about what takes these songs into different directions. It tries to be very different and unique with each and every single song, almost looking at creating 9 singles. When you build an album like that, it becomes about the individuality of the songs and not necessarily about the collective. Now there's positives and there's negatives. One of the biggest negative is perhaps the ability that the listener has to walk away from the album at any given time. You're not compelled to listen to the song that comes after because you don't need that track in order to enjoy the song that you're currently listening to. One of the positives is that you can digest this record in a variety of ways. You can put it on a playlist, you can take your favorite songs out of it, listen to a song here, listen to a song there. You don't have to set time in order to enjoy this record. You can just enjoy one song with the time that you have available to you. Listen to 1, listen to 2, listen to 3. It really comes down to how you want to go at it and how much time you want to spend with it. So depending on what kind of listener you are, this could be a positive, this could be a negative. It really comes down to you as the listener, not necessarily the record itself. As far as the sound goes, the album is modern metalcore with all the cliches that comes around with it, and that's undeniable. The record doesn't have that unpredictability attached to it. It becomes easy to know what's coming around the corner. That doesn't mean that they don't deliver with quality, because all 9 songs, like I said earlier, could be singles, so the quality is there in the individual songs, but you almost expect what each track is going to put forward. Maybe the one element on this album that offers some surprises are all the guest appearances. But as far as the sound is concerned, the record really doesn't take any left turns. It's an album that has a sense of fluidity. It's really well put together. The production behind it cleans up the sound extremely well, allowing you to see all the different layers, everything that is happening, giving it that modern touch and coming across very direct, very melodic, and also heavy at the exact same time, which are all attributes that you need in a good sounding metalcore album. And this album definitely has that as its backdrop. And one of the main ingredients of this record is the guitar sound. I like the guitar sound a lot because it has different moments, it has different attributes, and they layered it very well throughout the entire experience. Sometimes feeling a little dense, specifically in the verses. Some verses on this album could have been a little bit lighter. They could have infused more synths or more keyboards to lighten up the mood, or they could have taken some of the density out of the guitar sound in order to thin them out, in order for the sound to be a little bit more driven, to be a little bit more penetrating, and not having as much oomph as it does. Now, it doesn't have that DNA consistently from song to song. It changes, it varies quite a bit, so that allows for a more dynamic experience. But I would have liked to see that experience be a little bit more consistent with a more thin approach throughout the entire record. I think would have had a more lasting impact in terms of where these songs can go in the future, and not just be a track that you digest quickly, but also get over it very quickly as well. Now, as far as the drums goes, I really enjoyed the drum sound throughout the entire record. It had a nice density to it, it had a nice oomph to it. It made the tracks at times feel like they had a lot more volume, that they had a lot more presence. And the balanced approach that they offer, it's definitely something that I wanted in the guitars, but it's nice to have in the drums. At least both elements are different from one another, and because they're different from one another, they're able to blend a little bit better and create a little bit more movement within the sound and not feel extremely stagnant. Now, when it comes to the vocals, this is where you see perhaps the more movement. The album has a lot of guest vocalists on it, perhaps too many, and I think that dilutes the experience a bit. But it goes back to the design. It goes back about creating 9 singles, 9 individual songs that have to have certain attributes and certain qualities in order to become hits. But when you're putting a whole record together and half or even maybe more than half of the songs featuring guest vocalists, you're taking a little bit of who you are and you're not giving the listener the right approach as far as showcasing your very own DNA. because your very own DNA is now mixed in with other bands, with other artists' DNA. And this to me is not necessarily a good approach if you want to establish yourself as a band that has a signature sound, that has a signature way, so that you have the ability to put a song out there, and when the listeners pick that song up, they immediately know who that song belongs to. This album is too concentrating on being good and really delivering great tracks, but not really thinking about what is the future, where we want to go with it. Do we really want to define ourselves as a band and not just come across as a project? Because when you have these many guest vocalists in a record, it definitely feels more like a project than a full-fledged band that's looking forward and not necessarily just looking at the present. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Spark featuring Sueco. The verses are a little bit more contained, more explosive musically and vocally in the chorus. The chorus definitely brightens up, if you will, and then there's these great heavy segments that come off of the chorus back into the verses. That transition is really good because it offers a little bit more power, it offers a little bit more heaviness, and it connects really well the experience of chorus and verses. It becomes the perfect bridge that unifies these two different movements and these two different momentums within the song. The heavy breakdown that this track offers is definitely the exclamation mark. It's a little bit of a reset. It allows you to almost disconnect from the previous experience of the song and reconnect to what the song is going to bring you around the corner. I thought it was really important to have it, not just because you want a heavy breakdown, but because you really needed something to break away from the routines in the paradigms that this song was putting together throughout the first 2/3. Next we have Cyanide, heavier sounding song. The vocals sound heavy. It's just a heavy song all around. It takes that sense of heaviness from the get-go and it keeps that experience pretty much connected throughout the entire track. It takes away the heaviness with some electronic elements here and there, but those electronic elements create nuances. They dilute the heaviness, but they don't completely erase it. So it's still a song that feels that it has a lot of volume, that has a lot of power, a lot of aggression, a lot of intensity. One of my favorite songs vocally as well, because it feels very dynamic, great range, very impactful. I like the difference between the verses, the pre-chorus and the chorus. It just has these different steps that you need to take. It has movement, but it has forward movement, which is really important. It's a song that really never looks back. It's always looking forward, and because it has a lot of heaviness both vocally and musically, it feels very balanced and very consistent, even though it's very dynamic at the exact same time. Last but not least, The Dread featuring Justin Hill. This is more emotional than I was expecting coming in. Perhaps one of the more emotionally dripped songs, and you see that not just in the vocal approach, not just in the tonality, not just in how the vocals come across with the lyrics and the impact that those two have together, but also musically. The electronic elements, the layers of electronic elements in this track helps create that mood, that atmosphere. It adds texture to the overall song. It allows you to still feel like this is a heavy track, because it is. It's a heavy track from start to end, but it's also a song that in that heaviness, you also find some melancholy. And when you find that melancholy specifically in the chorus is very melancholic in this song, you're able to digest that heaviness differently, or at least perceive it differently. It's a song that has a little bit more to give. It has a little bit more to give musically, it has a little bit more to give vocally. And then when you add to all of this, that emotional balance, that drip of emotion that comes across in every single moment of the track, is just a song that really stands out by how different it feels. Not necessarily how different it sounds, but how different it feels. Talk about creating a track with similar attributes to other songs on the record, but by changing the mood, by changing the atmosphere, both vocally and with those electronic elements, you're able to create something quite different to the ears, for the ears of the listener. This is it, ONI, The Silver Line, on October 13th on Iron Shore Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.